Welcome back here to Midday Kentucky. Today we're out at OBC Kitchen to give you at home some tips on how to pair bourbon with food. We're joined now by Executive Chef Matt Combs. Thank you for having us out today.
Well, thanks for coming out today.
So I want to start with your first tip, and it seems obvious, but you say don't forget to cook with bourbon. Why is that important?
Well, cooking with bourbon is one of the easiest ways to help pair your food with the bourbon that you want to drink. Just by simply using different techniques, whether it be to saute, whether it be to render the fats down and add the bourbon after the fact. Like for example, we use honey bourbon glaze that goes on our bacon in a glass. It helps adhere the candy shell to the bacon. So not only does the bacon impart a lot of flavor as well, you start to pick up on the different tones of the bourbon that's actually on the bacon.
And this is a big ticket item around here. I know it won an award at the Taste of the Bluegrass. Well, I'm going to give this a try, but tell us, what are some other ways to cook with bourbon?
You know, a lot of people like to use bourbon with sweet items because it does have such a malty and picks up on a lot of caramel and toffee notes. So bourbon bread pudding, you know, that's a huge thing around these days. You can also use it in a fact where if you were going to do a sauce, so like any French sauce that had cognac in it, you can replace it with bourbon. So you can do a nice cognac demi or a bourbon demi in this case to go with a nice like bold steak or some red meat. Tip number 2, I always like to think about the proof of the bourbon. The higher the proof, they tend to have, they need to go against more bold food. The lower the proof, you know, you pick up on a lot more sweet notes. So like a lower proof bourbon, like the 80 to 90 range, we would pair with our scratch-made donuts because they have this really nice cinnamon sugar, candy shell. A lot of those sweet notes really pick up on the toffees and the caramel of the bourbon that you pick up on. Tip number 3 would be think about the floral notes of the bourbon. When you think about all the different smells that you can get from that, whether it be herb or toffee or caramel. One thing that we really like to do here with our New York strip, we have this very herby garlic butter that goes on top of this New York strip, and I like to pair it with a very floral bourbon. So for tip number 4, think about the mash bill of the bourbon. And the mash bill is basically just kind of the recipe of all the grain that goes in. You know, for it to be bourbon, it has to be 51% corn. Then all the other layers of the different grain, it's kind of what gives you all the unique flavors to the different distillers, you know, recipe that the flavors they want to impart for you. You know, one thing that we do here at the restaurant is seared halibut dish. We serve it with a sweet corn bisque. So since corn is the bulk of the bourbon, this corn bisque matches up with most any bourbon that we serve, but usually one that's just on a slightly lower proof with the heavy on the corn. So, you know, the final tip is really don't forget about smoke. You know, bourbon is aged in charred barrels, so the bourbon really picks up a lot of smokiness. So a lot of your smoked meats, your barbecues, your bacons, your wood-fired grills, all those lend really well to the char from the bourbon, the char flavor from the bourbon. So don't forget about smoke. And a great thing is that smoke also can lend itself to a bourbon cocktail.
So let's talk about those smoky cocktails now. I'm joined by Chris Hayner, the general manager here at OBC, and we're going to be talking about one of the most popular cocktails. That's the smoked old fashioned, right?
Yes, it's a traditional old fashioned. So it's a 100 proof Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey,
Okay.
Demerara syrup, and Angostura bitters. The only difference is we're going to smoke it instead.
All right, walk us through how you make this.
So we'll pour to the old fashioned once it's made inside a glass jar here. We'll take our barrel chips and our smoke gun.
Okay. Wow. Wow, and that's it. All right, ready to go. This just smells amazing. We're going to give some of these smoky cocktails a try, but first I'm going to set things to break. We have more Midday Kentucky coming up on the other side.